Hello folks, the moment has arrived. The 5090 reviews are in, and the question I'm trying to answer today is what does this mean for the 5080 and lower tier cards? So a couple of days ago I released a video with my predictions, and these were based on numbers. They were based on what I'd seen a couple of other YouTubers, fairly expert YouTubers, had talked about, and I ran the numbers. I basically took them a little bit further and started looking at ray tracing and path tracing and so on, and basically came up with what I believe will be the uplift in performance for the 5080 over mainly the 4080 Super, because that's the card that's replaced by the 5080, not the 4080 that they've put in the charts, which flatters the 5080, but the similarly priced 4080 Super. So I came up with some figures, and I'll go over them shortly, but I want to focus on the 5090 results first. Okay, so I have my bullet points here. It's like, obviously I'm an academic, and it's, classes in session and all that. So we'll go through the bullet points, and we'll go through the numbers. Okay, so what does it mean for 5080 lower? Because I think that's what most people are interested in, because I'm not saying that's what most people can afford, because we're talking $1,000+ but it's certainly a lot more affordable than the $2,000 plus, and it's going to be plus 5090. So there are a lot of reviews out there, way more than I could possibly have tried to watch before making this video, but I have watched, I think, maybe 7 or 8 so far, and I've selected the people that I trust for reviews, that I constantly watch, that consistently come up with kind of no BS numbers and evidence-based viewpoints on whether something is worth a buy or not. So what is very useful though is videocards.com have put up a very useful webpage with a very long list of links to reviews, and some of these are web pages, some of these are YouTube videos, and you can see all the familiar faces there, like Derbauer, Gamers Nexus, Hardware Unboxed, Linus Tech Tips if you're into your kind of entertainment in inverted commas, lots of others, Overclocking, Tech Testers, Tech Yes City, a lot of names that I would be familiar with and would trust. Level 1 Techs, and Kit Guru's in there somewhere, I think. Yeah, Kit Guru is another good quality source of benchmarks. So I've selected some here to look at. Now I've looked at more than these, but I've got 2 that concentrate more on the raw numbers, raster and RT, but mostly focusing on the raster performance. And I've got a couple then. Daniel Ona, I like some of his head-to-head videos, and there's a lot of 4090 versus 5090 footage, and I think that's very, very useful, especially when you're looking at ray tracing performance and path tracing performance. So he does go into games like Alan Wake 2, Indiana Jones, and so on, and tries the various levels of ray tracing with and without upscaling. And I think that's important to note, that this is definitely worth looking at, and it's definitely worth looking at his charts that show basically the highest level of path tracing, so RT overdrive, full RT, etc., that uses path tracing. But what was noticed was that the upscaled full path tracing difference was smaller than the native 4K path traced results. So when you're not using upscaling on the 5090, the performance increase can be 35, 40+% improvement. But when you're using upscaling, as you probably would, especially on a 5080, you're going to be upscaling at 4K if you want to try and use path tracing at 4K, which is a bit of a stretch, to be honest. Even on a 5080, that's going to be a stretch. Yeah, that I thought that was quite interesting to note. So what are the raster improvements? They tend to be 25 to 31. Okay, that's the largest one I've seen so far, and the lowest I've seen so far is plus 25. But it's in that 5 or 6% window of 25 to 31. So that's, as most of the reviews are noting, that's no generational improvement at all, and it doesn't bode well for the lower tier cards that I'm focused on now. In terms of moving beyond raster, the ray tracing improvements, including path tracing, and I'm a little bit surprised at this, but particularly with the path tracing, that there's usually only slightly better performance. So it could be in the region of 3, 4, 5% better than just the raster performance. In some cases, even including path tracing when you're upscaling. Now, if you're going native with path tracing, it can be more in the sort of 40% region, 37, 40%, but a bit less with upscaling. So if you are upscaling, which you most likely would be at 4K anyway, you're not going to see the big improvements from the extra teraflops of RT performance that are listed in the specs. So I think that's quite disappointing personally, because when I game at 4K, I'm doing so to turn on all of the bells and whistles, all of the eye candy. So I'm not too happy with what I've seen so far. Going into the RT off versus RT on stats, Kit Guru does a decent job here of comparing 5090 and 4090. Black Myth Wukong native 4K, basically 4K max settings, plus 30, very high RT, so that uses path tracing with upscaling to get to a playable frame rate, plus 37, so a bit more, as you'd expect, but basically no difference in Alan Wake 2, and I'm a bit surprised by that. I was expecting results at least like this, if not more, when you switch on the highest level of RT path tracing. Okay, so no difference there, and even with Cyberpunk 2077, there was actually a decrease when employing upscaling. Now, with on Daniel Owen's video, he does list a percentage improvement for RT overdrive, which is the path tracing in Cyberpunk 2077, and he got 42%. So basically, if you're not upscaling, it's the same. Sometimes when you're upscaling, it actually reduces the difference between the 4090 and the 5090, which is, that's quite surprising. I'm not sure why that is. I'd love to be able to find out more on that, but at the moment that's a bit of a mystery. Okay, and the point I'd make about that is, at native 4K with the full RT overdrive, the full path tracing experience, yes, the gains are bigger when you're not upscaling, but even on a 5090 that might not be very playable. You might be barely getting 60 FPS. On a 5080, I expect you're going to be more like 35 frames per second. You have to upscale and then maybe switch on frame generation. So yeah, you're not going to be seeing those big path tracing gains that you might have hoped for, I don't think. So yes, the last video I did was 45 minutes. I'm not doing 45 minutes. That's just crazy. So I'm going to wrap up as quick as I can. These were my predictions from the last video a couple of days ago. My predictions were, and I'm going to concentrate on 4080 Super, which is the real comparison that should be made. I'm reckoning 7% improvement, and my calculations, which I'll link to that video in the description as well as the link to the video cards list of other reviews. I'm looking at 7% uplift over the 4080 Super in terms of raw rasterization performance. With ray tracing, I noted that it depends. It depends on the RT workload. In some games it would be very low, and in those games you'll see AMD with similar results to NVIDIA. That'll tell you that the RT workload is very low. And in those games, I'm expecting another maybe 2%. Okay. It's impossible to know exactly what the overall average would be. Okay, because you just don't know from game to game what the percentage of the workload is dedicated to RT. So we're just going to have to wait for the benchmarks, but I can't imagine it being much more than an extra 2%. So then you're looking at 9%. That's my prediction for your traditional low RT, and 7% for just raw raster. For path tracing, again, this might depend on whether you're going, let's say, native. Maybe it's native 1440p. If you chance your luck, maybe at 4K, maybe you can get a playable frame rate if you're happy maybe with 30 FPS or something like that, and maybe upscale from there if you're okay with the latency. Then this is a bit more speculative. It's very difficult to tell, but I'm only expecting at most 12 to 15% uplift in some of those path tracing games like Alan Wake 2, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle turned up to the max, and Cyberpunk 2077's RT Overdrive and Black Myth Wukong with its full ray tracing settings. So what does that mean for the 5070 and 5070 Ti? Well, we just need to look at the core counts and NVIDIA's own charts that they've released, and you're looking at maybe another 3 to 5% on top of that. So maybe 10%, 10 to 12% raster performance, and heading up towards the 15-16% maybe with low RT workloads, and 15 to 20% then with path tracing games, the heavy duty path tracing games, which, you know, with those cards you'd be playing those at 1440p, but probably not natively. So if you're upscaling, will you see the same situation on those lower tier cards as you do with the 5090? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see if the benchmarks. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Look at those videos that I recommended. This is an excellent overview. This isn't that many games. It's actually, you can see that there's many data points for Cyberpunk at various resolutions, and RT Overdrive native, RT Overdrive with DLSS quality, and so on. So it's very interesting to look at the drop off when you start upscaling. This is the Kick Guru average, which is 29%. We have hardware unboxed, boxed 17 game average, 27%, very, very similar, 25, 27, 29, and Digital Foundry, 30.9% at 4K. The 1440p and 1080p are, you know, you can kind of ignore them. There are many bottlenecks there. In fact, it's quite possible there's even some bottlenecks at 4K that are holding the 5090 back, and it'll actually age quite well as future games come out that are more demanding. You know, but you can't buy something now on the promise that it'll age well. Okay. But when you're spending $2,500, it would want to age very well. So I'm going to finish up now. Just showing this here. We have a big storm on the way. They're calling it a once in a generation storm. So I'm hoping to get this video out before these hurricane gusts hit us. There's a danger to life, etc. So, you know, wish us all luck over here in Ireland. I'm in this region down here in the Cork region, and it's not looking good because we've got winds coming on shore there that are going to be very, very dangerous. In some areas they're talking about well in excess of hurricane gusts, especially out on the places like the Aran Islands and so on. So anyway, enough about me and the impending doom that's facing us. That's enough for today. I hope you found that useful, and hopefully you'll subscribe, because that'll, you know, this is only my second video on the channel, so subscribing and liking and commenting. I try to respond to every comment that isn't from a bot or, you know, in all caps or anything like that. So I try to respond to everyone, and if you subscribe, it'll support me, and hopefully the channel will grow, and I'll have lots more content on GPUs and graphics technology, rendering and all that lovely AI stuff and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, we'll leave it there and I'll see you in the next video.